I am starting a new character, specifically a tiefling rogue. Her appearance doesn't matter except for the fact that she has cloven hooves. The problem is, my GM is threatening to kill my character if I don't change her and remove her hooves. He says he doesn't want to design boots for her, possibly referring to boots as space boots, but he's refusing to elaborate. In all honesty, this is really stupid. I am not talking about actually designing boots for my character, I'm talking about just describing them, which as a GM is something he can easily do. Ultimately, I would like to know what the community as a whole thinks of this issue. I don't think much of this other than that this DM is pretty lazy and I have no idea what his problem is with hooves. I like playing tieflings because they're unique, so this GM wants to make them less unique because he can't take 5 seconds to just come up with a description. Well, I'm a longtime viewer of the likes of Crit Crab and Crispy's Tavern. Nice. I had hoped I would never actually have to post here, but I've got a short story that happened just a couple weeks ago. The important players are myself, the DM, Friend 1, and Friend 2. There are more involved, but these are the most important people in this. So last week, I had to leave a campaign I had joined a while back, which had a minor horror story of its own, but it's not my piece to tell on that one, after realizing that I no longer really enjoyed it or had fun with it. As that story didn't end in a bad way, I'm not going to go into that particular story. So after that, I started searching for a new campaign to join, as I'm a DM and want to be able to play in a campaign outside of my main group. I think I found it through Mr. Ripper's Discord channel. The DM was offering a campaign that sounded interesting enough, but the details are not important as I never made it that far. I chatted with the DM a bit before joining things up, and he welcomed me into the campaign, giving some basic rules, including no flying races, which I wasn't a fan of, but I considered it minor at best since I don't even play flying races as I prefer elves, so whatever. The DM also started the call by brushing his teeth, which, given he started the call himself, it seemed a bit odd, but again, not the point. So once I joined the Discord and we all got together on a call, we started talking with one another about our plans. The DM basically opened it up to any homebrew we wanted, and I had gotten the PDF of Tal'Dorei Setting Guide Reborn, so I was thinking about trying one of the subclasses from that. Once the call was over, I started thinking about what I was going to play, leaning towards the Blood Mage subclass, and then that's when it happened. So in the advertisement, the DM asked for 8 people for his campaign, a bit high, but nothing a good DM couldn't handle. So as we got settled in, the DM dropped this particular bombshell upon us. He wanted to cut down the group to 5 people by having a battle royale between 8 level 1 characters. Now, one thing you have to understand about me, I like casters and range fighters. It's become my niche to play in, and he knew this, so Friend 1 protested this decision, as did multiple other members of the group, and I did as well. It was not a good start to a campaign, and set up a red flag for obvious reasons. The DM said he would figure something out, and then said no hard feelings towards anyone that got kicked, and then myself and Friend 1 got kicked with no explanation. Friend 1 just thought that the campaign had fallen apart and no one had gotten kicked, but Friend 2, who was not kicked, told me that he had kicked a few people out, so Friend 2 also left, while giving the DM the middle finger. Not the most mature of reactions, but what I would have done, so yeah. Luckily, this has a happy ending. Friend 2, as it turned out, had his own campaign based around Norse mythology that he invited me to join. I had to play a melee-based character to fit with what the group needed, but I got what I wanted in the original campaign as Friend 2 let me use Matt Mercer's Path of the Juggernaut subclass. I've had a lot of fun with the character so far, and look forward to playing her more in the future. TLDR. DM invites too many people to start, and instead of just telling people that they can't play, decides to try to hold a battle royale between level 1 characters. That was unbelievably dumb on the DM's part. If you think you have a limit for how many people you can DM for, enforce that limit. For me, it's 5, and guess what? I don't get groups that are bigger than 5 for that reason. The solution is not to have a little battle royale Fortnite style to figure out who's the best to join your group. I'm sure the DM thought that was a great idea at the time, but it wasn't. The cast. The GM, paid GM. Kirk, the captain, self-proclaimed Gygaxian. Spock, the pilot, my character. Johnny, the mechanic, a play at Johnny number 5, I think, and the rest of the crew. Originally, I signed up for a different campaign. It was going great, and after some sessions, 4 or 5 of them I think, the GM offered a 1-month advance payment plan with a nice discount for regulars. So I decided to take this deal. Shortly after, though, I had just paid, the GM approached me and said that the group was too big, 7 people, so he will move me to another group. Bummer, it was fun so far and these guys were great, although I do agree with 7 players being a bit too much in general. As a kind of compensation, he promised the group only consists of veteran players he hand-picked for something really special, so that I get my money's worth. In hindsight, I agree, it was a special kind of disaster. Session 0. As the cast suggests, the GM was running a space exploration game through a sci-fi homebrew setting with tons of borderline magical technology. During Session 0, I came to meet my fellow players the first time, especially our problem player, Kirk. Picking our roles in the ship, Kirk immediately went for Captain. The GM inquired about Kirk's expertise as Captain. He immediately played the Gygaxian card, stating how he played D&D since the first edition and all that crap. Not that I cared too much. Some of these Gygaxians are horrible GMs or players, but the GM liked it and I didn't think anything of it at this point. So, we had our Captain. Session 1. Session 1, we do some basic dungeon delving in an abandoned space station, and after we secured it, we split up to investigate some of the notable sites. The GM goes through every crew member, asks for 1 or 2 rolls, and tells them what they found and moves things along rather quickly. I was the last one in the order, and my turn comes up, but before the GM and I can get to talking, Captain Kirk interrupts and yells through the voice chat, "Spock, report!" Well, I have patiently awaited my turn, and since Kirk was in the same voice chat, he obviously knew I can't report anything until I spoke with the GM to learn what I'm doing. At least so I thought. I ignored him and asked the GM what is there to report then. But during the GM's narration, Captain Kirk interrupted again. "Spock, come in! This is the captain speaking! Are you there? Answer the call!" The GM stopped mid-sentence and asked me what I reply instead. I now had to play out this scene. To be honest, it felt really silly. Of course, I tried to put Kirk aside and told him to give me a minute. I'm almost done, and then he scolds me for slacking off on the job. This is even more silly, so I tell him out of character to back off and let me talk to the GM first. But no, now Kirk out of character is scolding me for metagaming. His character wouldn't know about any talks to any GMs, and as the captain, it's his duty to discipline the crew. I have no clue what he was thinking, but for me, he turned from decent to obnoxious in no time. The GM intervened and asked us both to leave it so the game can move on. We agreed, but I believe for Kirk, this was the build-up for the next session. Session 2. Now, I was the actual pilot of our ship. I picked an ability that allowed me to steer the ship telepathically. I didn't even need to be on the bridge or even on the ship at all. I think it was pretty neat. Our ship had suffered some damage and ran low on power. To assess the damage, Kirk used a device he found earlier to telepathically connect to the ship as well. I said that I could do this, but Kirk insisted I do something else. Fair enough, so we're both connected now, but we went on different tasks. After some investigating, we found a power source to refuel, but in order to get to it, we needed to steer the damaged ship with minimal fuel usage through some dangerous obstacles. Alright, time for the pilot to shine. Or so you might think. I will paraphrase roughly. I will use my connection to safely guide the ship through. Don't you have a crew member for that? Oh, you think you can do this better than me? I'm the pilot. Ha! I will teach you a lesson now. With my connection, I have superior control over the ship. Way to be condescending. So I decided to get the GM involved and simply ask if this is indeed true. And the GM agreed. Damn my life. Kirk's device was more advanced and indeed allowed for better control. Thus, Kirk would have a better chance of succeeding with the task at hand. Nice, my character just became useless. I talked to the GM after he claimed he forgot that I had that power. He also tried to argue that technically it wasn't about piloting the ship. I really didn't understand what he was getting at. I was not in the mood to be so open to technicalities at that time. I was mostly just disappointed. It's moving the ship from point A to point B. What technicalities are there to discuss? The GM tried to defuse the situation by promising that the captain's device will cease to function properly within the upcoming mission, and that I will have to replace the captain as the pilot again. Though I still voiced my concern about this too. I wanted to play a decent spaceship pilot, not the replacement due to lack of better options. However, the GM urged me to use this for some new inter-crew conflict and roleplay all around. I wasn't really eager to do so, but quite reluctantly, I agreed. Session 3. The ship had just recharged and we traveled on. I tinkered with the sensors a bit since I was booted from the pilot seat. Kirk made it clear that I'm explicitly not controlling the ship. He's going to control the ship in critical situations, but someone still needed to do all the routine tasks that he couldn't be bothered with. So, he disallows me from taking up another position on the ship. I told him I'm his pilot, not his lackey, so stop with the condescension. Kirk went on with some insults, but I didn't reply or interact with him. It was tiring, and I checked out, not commenting on anything. Johnny, our engineer, was an android. He was a more comic relief character, a faulty robot that became self-aware, somewhat like Johnny number 5. The character occasionally went on a little bit overboard with playing out Johnny's faultiness, but nothing too serious. He always wrapped things up when people stopped laughing and moved on. The players, including myself, we liked him. Well, except Kirk, unfortunately. Johnny was maintaining the ship and screwed up somehow. I can't remember the details, but it was the result of a fumbled roll. The GM prompted him to describe it, and he fleshed it out. It was a little more dramatic than the GM was probably intending, with some minor system powering down, but nothing consequential since we were all just traveling peacefully, and also the description was funny as hell. But seemingly not funny for Kirk, he decided to yell insults at the droid, like how a faulty droid shouldn't be on the ship, and he's going to melt it down for parts. Johnny tried to withdraw from the situation, but Kirk was not having it. He told him how he doesn't recognize Johnny as a real person, and how he's easily replaceable, blah blah blah. The session ended there. I was honestly confused by this. The GM seemed to want some inter-crew conflict, but, well, I can't speak for the other players, but this seemed beyond some roleplay, I cannot say. To be honest, I believe only because I paid up front, I stayed at this point. Session 4. Another planet, another dungeon. It was an underwater research post this time. The ship could dive, so we docked directly. Kirk immediately ordered Johnny and myself to stay on the ship. Of course, we questioned this order since this dungeon was obviously meant to be explored by the group. Kirk explained that as the captain, he doesn't need to justify his orders, and we need to follow them to the letter. After some back and forth, he explained that Johnny is too unreliable to take on to any missions. The GM confirmed that this would indeed lead to Johnny and me sitting out the entire session. But Kirk was adamant about it, and also directly refused to the GM to explain why I needed to sit out as well. Johnny and I decided to ignore these orders and start exploring the station anyway. Kirk was fuming. He stopped the session and confronted the GM, demanding he make us follow his orders. He threw a tantrum about us not respecting his authority as a veteran player as well as the captain. Johnny and myself argued we came here to play, not wait and miss out. So, by default, his orders don't matter if he doesn't use them to enable the group instead of bullying everybody. The GM wasn't saying anything, so Kirk went on throwing a tantrum. In his final form, he accused everyone of metagaming and tried to make a point of how we sabotaged his captain experience. As a player, he wanted to be a captain and give orders, and we ruined it. Quite specifically, he accused me of ruining his spotlight. With my telepathic abilities, I robbed him of his opportunity to command the ship and made it impossible to play the captain. However that may be, this argument felt silly. I did not reply. Quite late into the discussion, the GM told me to just make a new character and leave it. The session ended there, and I pretty much regretted paying up front. Session 5. Unfortunately, I did not have the sense to just bail and forget about the payment, so I actually went to see Session 5. Curse you, past cheat me! Kirk had also made a new character in the meantime, but the new character immediately called me the captain for whatever reason. I told him in character that this ship doesn't really have a captain. He went on how a ship without a captain is not functioning, how this is a stupid idea to run a ship without one. So, in his power as a fresh visitor on board, he decided to designate me the new captain. This was quite confusing for everyone. The GM asked him to elaborate on this, so that we can all make sense of what he's trying to accomplish here. Kirk insisted that I needed to accept my role in his downfall as captain, so I need to be the new captain as I toppled over his old reign as the captain. What? Pretty much everyone agreed that this is stupid and more meta than anything he accused us of. Remember, he's a new character. So Kirk started yelling insults and then left the voice call. The session ended there, and I was quite relieved that Kirk was gone. The GM talked to us in the Discord text chat that he talked to Kirk to bring him back into the game. I didn't stay to find out what happened to them. I just told them I won't play in any group together with Kirk and that I lost too much trust in the GM to keep playing before I left. Man, I really try not to blame GMs, and it's obviously not entirely their fault, it's Kirk's fault, but damn it, this GM really needed to do something about this, and inviting him back into the game after he had already left, come on. And on top of that, when you're a GM in a paid game, you have a lot more responsibility. In a free game, I get it a little bit more. You're probably playing in that game more for the friendship. But here, there's also financial incentive. And since you're getting money out of these people, you don't want to be subjecting them to an unfun game. I understand that Kirk is also a paying customer, but a paying customer ruining the experience for other paying customers, a good customer does not make. As for Kirk, well, this is textbook main character syndrome, down to the letter, even bragging about wanting to hold the spotlight. This sucks. Taking other group members' roles is not fun. You're in a team, and in a team, some people are going to be good at some things, other people are going to be good at other things. Even if your character technically can do other tasks and replace other players, you probably shouldn't do that. Let other players have the spotlight. If you've noticed that Bobby hasn't had his character do something in a while, and Bobby finally gets an opportunity to roll a stealth check or pick a lock or something, and you know you could probably pick the lock too, don't steal that moment from Bobby. If you've already had your moment, let another party member have a moment too. It's all about the team dynamic. Everyone's supposed to be having fun. Hogging the spotlight isn't fun for anybody, except maybe for you. I've been a GM for about 5 years now. I've GM'd a campaign with close friends and another for my love of D&D. I've always had good players. They all got along well and we're all playing to have fun. I have been reading the sub, laughing at many of the stories while thinking, glad that's never happened to me. Well, it has finally happened. I just created a new setting and I'm starting up a new campaign. I've had my eye on some potential players for a while. I prefer players who are laid back and get along with anybody. I like to run a one-shot with all candidates to see if their playstyle can fit with the type of campaign I like to run. I found a strong group of players and was looking forward to this campaign. I scheduled a session 0 and one of the players informed me that they have mentioned and invited another player. I was upset at first, but after hearing about their credentials and chatting with them through text, I decided to give it a try. Wizzy shows up for session 0 and informs everyone their character is a kid. Kind of a red flag, but okay. After going over housekeeping and world lore, we do a short playtest. It's a basic, goblins have overrun my business and I'll pay you to get rid of them scenario. The group heads to the home of the quest giver, and Wizzy says that he walks in without knocking. I mention it's the guy's home and it's locked. He whips out a lockpick set. Red flag number 2. The other players say they just knock on the door. The quest giver unlocks and opens the door. Wizzy immediately pushes their way in, starts rummaging through the quest giver's belongings. Red flag number 3. I ignore him and interact with the other players. They all head to the business. Wizzy finishes up and joins. They get to the business and Wizzy states that they are going to just walk into the business and cast Fireball? It's level 1. Red flag number 4. I let them know it's also locked. The quest giver is hesitant about this group of people with this psycho child. He reluctantly unlocks his business. Wizzy, true to his word, walks in and starts burning down the establishment. Not with Fireball, he didn't have the spell, but a torch and control flame. Wizzy starts screaming maniacally. Red flag number 5. The quest giver is just staring in shock. The rest of the party is staring too. They were discussing how they were going to search the establishment for the goblins right before this, but now they just stand there. They begin to try and put out the fire and stop Wizzy to calm him down. I don't do PvP. Wizzy states that they refuse to stop or be calmed down. Red flag number 6. Eventually, Wizzy stops when the other players convince them that they might not get paid for this. Wizzy states how excited they are to eat cooked goblin. Red flag number 7. Keep in mind, this is supposed to be a child. They find the goblins, kill them, and in the process, out of game, Wizzy is establishing that they are a boundary-pushing player when it comes to the rules. Can I push the burning crate against the goblins as a bonus action, causing force damage and fire damage? No, you can't. Out of combat, Wizzy is very loud and yelping constantly. We play in my basement directly under the room of my younger kids who are asleep, so yeah, that's a red flag number 8. By the end of the combat, it's taking everything in me not to just direct every goblin towards Wizzy because they've been so annoying. It's also taking everything in the other players not to just direct their attacks at Wizzy, who is looking like more of a threat to the quest giver's establishment than the goblins who have taken it over. They attack the goblins closest to Wizzy, hoping for a natural one, and that I'll rule that Wizzy is hit by the errant swinger shot. No one is having fun, except Wizzy. Once the goblins are defeated, Wizzy says, "I continue burning down the business." Final red flag. The other players look at them and say, "Yeah, we're not gonna let you do that." It's late at this point. I ignore Wizzy and then interact with the farmer, who immediately leaves to tell the authorities about this psycho child. I end the session there. Moral of the story, if you're going to run a major campaign, always have a one-shot with players you've never played with before mentioning a campaign to them. That is a very true moral to the story, and yeah, thank God that this was not in a full campaign. A lot of people think that Wizzy should have been kicked earlier, but honestly, it is kind of weird and awkward just to say, "Go away" in the middle of a session. I think that just having him not come back after this one-shot is probably for the best, especially since, from what I can tell, this is an in-person game, where it's a little bit harder just to make someone go away. With that being said, I'm glad Wizzy didn't last longer than one session in this group. This is the definition of a ridiculous murder hobo. I don't understand how people get fun out of ruining a game for other people. Because, like I said in multiple stories in this video, this is a team game. We're supposed to work together to create a story that's fun for everyone at the table. If the group aren't having fun, that's essentially playing D&D wrong. Can't say there are many ways to play D&D wrong, but luckily for Wizzy, I suppose, he found one. Alright, now that is all I've got for you today. If you guys enjoyed this episode of RPG Horror Stories, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, we also have a Q&A series where I answer your questions and play some video games. If you want to see that, linked in the cards, and also while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so that you can get more of our content when it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment Captian to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.